Okay, so in this week's guitar lesson, we're going to be talking about the pentatonic scales. These are our favorite scales as guitar players. They're easy to visualize and we kind of know the sound of them. And we're going to start off with the major pentatonic scale, which I'm sure you probably know, but we're going to be adding a note to that major pentatonic scale to get a completely different sound. It sort of sounds a little more jazzy, kind of classes things up. It's super easy to hear and to see. And once you can hear the sound, that's really the goal of this, is to get that sound of that one note, which actually changes it, I realize, from the pentatonic scale. We're kind of tiptoeing more into the major scale, but I like to think of things in terms of simple structure. And like, to me, the pentatonic scales are a great sort of outline for your solo, and then add notes to that. That's the way that I do it. And so anyway, that's how we're going to approach this. So I've got this lesson split into two parts. In this video, we'll go through that major pentatonic scale and the one note that we add to it. If you'd like to join us for the part 2 video, where we go over the second half of the lead and download the tablature and the MP3 jam track so that you can practice playing everything we're going to talk through, you can get those extra materials by going to activemelody.com, do a search for EP614. Okay, let me start off and just mention tone. I'm playing through a Gibson ES335. You don't have to have a 335, but what I do have that you might want to think about is an overdriven sound. So this is what I was using for that recording. It's much heavier than you might think. I mean, and the reason I do that for this is because I like these notes to kind of ring out and sustain. So there was a lot of these sort of dramatic bends. And I just want those notes to ring out. So that's what I do, is I add overdrive. And when you hear it like that without the jam track, it definitely sounds like it would be too heavy, but in the mix, it actually kind of works out. So that's just something to consider. I'm going to turn this down a little bit as we get into this. But that's what I was using. So let's talk about the chord structure. So this song is played in the key of A, and it's really a 2-5-1 structure. Now, when it comes to blues, we usually think of 1-4-5 chord structure. The 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord. And when it comes to jazz, we generally will use a 2-5-1 chord structure. Not always, but that's sort of just in generic terms. So 2-5-1, in the key, when you're playing the key of A, your 2 chord is a B minor. Then you go to E7 for your 5 chord, and then your 1. And I played a major 7, so I played an A major 7 and resolved that way. Now, to get back to, so I'm going to just repeat that cycle, 2-5-1, 2-5-1. And I could have done it that way, but there's this transition chord to get you back to the 2, and that would be playing its 5 chord. And so you can remember that's called a secondary dominant chord. I'll put a lesson up on the screen if you're interested in learning more about that. But basically, you can do this with any chord in any song. When you're trying to get to a chord, if you want to transition or loop back to something, and you're not sure how to do that, and you want a kind of a clever way to do it, you can play the chord that you're about to go to. You can play its 5 chord, not the 5 chord of the key of the song, but what's the 5 chord of that B minor, which is my 2 chord. So in this case, it would be an F sharp 7. So I play that chord, which pulls, that's the 5 chord of the B minor, pulls me back to that B minor. There's the E, there's the A, and then we go back to that secondary dominant. So you can see how that works, and I just wanted to kind of mention that as a little sidebar. All right, let's listen to the first part of this lead and we'll start breaking that down. Okay, so I started off with, now this is coming from the A major pentatonic scale. So remember, we're playing in the key of A, right? So I don't have to worry about the B minor chord or the E7 chord. I don't have to think about that. I can if I want. I can highlight the notes of those chords and play their arpeggios if I want to get sophisticated. But I could also just stay in the key of the song, and that's what most guitar players do. A lot of us do anyway. So it just depends on where you're at with your skill level and actually the sound you're going for. But I love to just take the key of the song and kind of stick to that. So if we're playing in the key of A and we're looking at our A major pentatonic scale, which is going to work great over all of this, this is where I'm starting, is pattern 2 of my A major pentatonic scale. So I can connect that back to my A bar chord here using the E shape. That's where we bar on the 5th fret, and then these 3 fingers make the E shape. So if I kind of start with that in my head, at least I picture that as my starting point, then I've got that little box there between the 5th fret and the 7th fret on strings 2 and 1. And then I've got the 6th fret 3rd string, and that would be all you really need to worry about of your A major pentatonic scale in that pattern or position. I could keep going down the strings, but this is the meat of it, in my opinion. I can get a lot of mileage out of that because I can take that, and if I want to go lower, I can slide down 2 frets from this note, that 6th fret 3rd string, slide down 2 frets, and now I'm in A major pentatonic scale pattern 1. So that's down here. So I can hit all those low notes, and I've got all of that to play with here. And plus, we're all pretty familiar with that pattern 1. So I like to connect those two and think of this as a little bridge to go from one to the other. And so this entire lead that I'm going to be playing, at least in this video, the first half of that solo was played out of those 2 pentatonic patterns. All right, so when I played that first little phrase, you know where that's coming from now. A major pentatonic scale pattern 2. So I'm barring the first 2 strings on the 5th fret, and I'm doing a hammer on to the 7th fret 2nd string. I'm playing strings 1 and 2 though. And I use the little tremolo. Use the little whammy bar there. You can use that if you've got it. Otherwise, just hit the note. And that came in on the 3. So if you're counting that, it's with the jam track, it's 1, 2, 3. Okay, now the next phrase goes like this. So let's look at that. So 5 and 7, those 2 notes on the 2nd string, those are in your major pentatonic scale pattern 2. But then I slid up to the 9th fret 2nd string. What is that note? Well, here it is in another spot. Let me just show it to you down here. Same note, 4th fret 1st string. That note is one of the notes from your A major scale. That's going to be the extra note that we're going to add to this pentatonic scale. And your pentatonic scale, just so you understand this bit of it, your pentatonic scale lives inside of your major scale. So if I look at my A major scale, for example, we're going to look at it right here. There's 7 notes in that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's that note I just introduced. And then we're back to 1. So your major pentatonic scale only has 5 notes. We got rid of the 7th scale degree and we got rid of the 4th scale degree out of your major scale to create the A major pentatonic scale. Penta meaning 5. So that's what the pentatonic scale is. It's just your major scale, but you get rid of 2 notes. But I'm adding 1 back in this case. So in actual fact, am I playing the pentatonic scale or am I playing the major scale? It doesn't really, you can look at it either way. I'm looking at it like I'm playing the pentatonic scale, but I'm just adding this note in. But here's the note that I'm talking about. So here's my root, right? There's my A, the note right behind it. That's it. That's your 7th. That's your 7th scale degree from your major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That note colors the sound of your solo and makes it sound like a major 7, that dreamy sound. And that sound is coming from that note. That one note is what's coloring it in that way. So I can add that note to my solo now to pull that kind of jazzier, dreamy sound. So I could still be using my major pentatonic scale, but I can work in that one note. And in this case, I played it up here. So that's just giving you your bearings. So that's where that's coming from. And then I played this phrase. And what I'm doing for that is major pentatonic scale, 5th fret, 7th fret on the 1st string. And then watch this. So I slid into that 7th, which we just added, that was our extra note. And then I played the 5th fret, 2nd string, 6th fret, 3rd string. These are 2 notes from your major pentatonic. But when you add it with this, you've now got a triad that is a major 7 sound. And it's just easy to find that note because it's one note behind your root. If I played those two notes with my root, I've just got my A major triad. If I play those two notes with that of 7, I've got the sound of my major 7. So that's what's going on there. All right, so at this point in the jam track, it's going to go to that secondary dominant chord that I was talking about, that F sharp 7 sound. And I played this. And so what I'm doing there, I'm still thinking a major pentatonic scale pattern 2, 5th fret, 7th fret on the 2nd string. But then I'm going to do a half bend on the 7th fret 2nd string, which comes to this note. Now that note would be a flat 7. Instead of a 7, which was this note, right? That's the one we introduced. The note right behind it is the flat 7. That's the note that you'd play in your A7, right? It would also be a note in your minor pentatonic scale. So that's a kind of a bluesy sound. And so to me, that was a note that fit perfectly over that F sharp 7. And you can think of that note, when you hear it in context with the F sharp 7, it sounds like an F sharp with a flat 9 in it. Like this sound. Kind of a jazzy sounding chord. But anyway, I didn't think about any of that. I just used my ear. I stayed in the pentatonic scale, and I knew I could do that sound. I knew the sound of that, and so I just did a little half bend there. It's not like you have endless possibilities when it comes to improvising. There's really a handful of sounds you've got to get familiar with, and these are two incredible ones that can totally change the way you play. Hearing the sound of that major 7 and hearing the sound of that flat 7, you get two very distinct sounds. So after that half bend, I played that. Came to the 5th fret and then walked up the major pentatonic scale, pattern 2. Well, at least 3 notes of it there. 6th fret, 3rd string, 5th fret, and 7th fret on the 2nd string. And then back to that 6th fret, 3rd string. And now I'm sliding, I'm using a little bridge and going down into pattern 1 of my major pentatonic. Okay, so now I'm going to play this phrase. So that's 2 E notes, and actually I did that not thinking about E notes, but at that point the jam track was the E. It was the E, the 5 chord. And so I played that, but I was still just thinking about A major pentatonic scale. That note and that note. 2 notes from my A major pentatonic scale pattern 1. And then I went like this. Look at this. Now this will be a big takeaway. So you gotta remember this. If you remember nothing else, remember this. This sound, that's a chromatic sound, and all I'm doing is I'm taking 2 notes from my major pentatonic scale in this case, but you could take 2 notes from any scale. You know how when you're playing a scale, you've got notes in between. You're kind of going up. So you're skipping a fret, like as I'm doing that. You can play those notes that you're skipping. You just can't focus on them. You can't stay on them too long, and you don't want to overdo it. You can do it in little spurts though, and it works. Just think of them as passing tones. So you can play. So what I did here is I walked between this 2nd fret and the 5th fret on that 2nd string. I just walked up chromatically. 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's a great place to do that. When you're in your major pentatonic scale and you're in pattern 1, you can just remember that on that 2nd string. That's a great little phrase. You hear that quite a bit in blues and jazz, western swing. So after that, I slid back into that second fret and hit that twice. Then I came down to the fourth string and played frets 4, 2, and then the second fret, third string. So it's like, and all of that is in my A major pentatonic scale, pattern 1. Now I want you to see this too though. Look at your A chord, right? There's my A chord using the A shape. Here's my A chord using the G shape. When you see this, you see that A chord using the G shape, that's just the top part of it. Here's like the bottom part of it. But when you see that, you can see now your A major pentatonic scale. You can see your A chord lives inside of that triad. And hopefully that's connecting some dots. Oh yeah, there's my A chord. There's my A major pentatonic scale. And you can take that information and apply it anywhere. So here's my C chord using that shape. There's that triad. There's my C major pentatonic scale, right? Here's that chromatic. There's that lick we just learned. So you can take everything we're learning in this and apply it to any key. This is not specific to the key of A. There's no open strings in it. All right, so now the jam track goes from the A to the 4 chord. I played a D7 and then went back to the A. So now we're kind of getting into more traditional blues, at least for that part. 1 to the 4 and back to the 1. And what I played over that was the A minor pentatonic scale. So I got away from the major pentatonic scale stuff and played. Let's look at that. So it's A minor pentatonic scale pattern 1, which is, right? So I'm going to start here on the 7th fret 4th string and hit that twice. 5th fret 3rd string, 7th fret 3rd string, and then I'm going to do a full bend. And then watch this. So it's, I'll just put that up on the screen. You can pause the screen and work that out with tab. But that's what I played. And then, so played the major third out of that, you know, that A chord, hammer on between the 5th fret and the 6th fret on the 3rd string, and then hit the 5th fret 2nd string. So all together it's like, it's a great little blues lick. So after I hit that 5th fret 2nd string, then I played this. And that's because we're going to transition into the next part, and what I'm playing here are 2 notes out of my C sharp 7. That's where we're going. I'm playing a C sharp 7, and that is the 5 chord of my F sharp minor, which is the relative minor for A. It's the relative minor for the key of the song. And so the next part really focuses on that F sharp minor, the minor 6 chord. That's another way to think of it. But to get to that minor chord, I played its 5 chord using that secondary dominant technique that I mentioned earlier. So these are 2 notes out of that secondary dominant chord, right? It's a C sharp 7, and I just played these 2 notes. I was picturing it here. Picturing that chord here, using the A shape. I played those 2 notes, and then I can play those 2 notes to represent my F sharp minor, which we'll get into in the part 2 video. So I'm actually going to wrap up this video here, but I want you to just remember, it's hearing that sound. In this case, it's taking your major pentatonic scale and playing that one note with it. That one note, it's just the note right behind your root. That's that major 7 sound, and you can work that in. Now, that only works if the song is in a major key. That's not going to work if it's in a minor key. But in a major key, you can do that, and you get that sound. Or if you want it to sound more bluesy, you go down one more step and get the flat 7. So you've got that option as well. All right, we'll see you in part 2 where we'll go over the second half. And if you like this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. Let me know if any of this was super helpful to you or if it was not clear. I like reading those comments, and it really helps me shape my future lesson planning. All right, we'll see you in part 2.